Happy Mother's Day to all. What do you do when your mother is no longer with you? Today we are navigating through grief and honoring our mothers who have passed. Joining me today is minister, author, and philanthropist, Reverend Dr. Rhonda Yearby. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Yearby. It has been such a wonderful pleasure knowing you and knowing your story. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and a little bit about your childhood too, since we'll be talking about navigating through grief with the loss
Okay.
of our mother.
Well, my mom
Yeah.
was a nurse. She was actually the first Black nurse in her town in Sherman, Texas. She met my dad there at Parent Air Force Base,
Mm-hmm.
is where I was born, grew up. My dad was in the military, so we're, military kids.
Wow.
And being in a family where my mom was always the first of everything. She was the first nurse in her town, uh, just a little bit of first of everything. But I grew up there, Cape Cod, lived in Germany, lived around the world most of my life. Then when my parents broke up, then my mother raised us on her own and did quite a good job, had four children. All her children have graduate degrees or doctorates. And
Mm-hmm.
so education was really important in our family when we were in high school, when other kids were saying, oh, I might do this, I might do that. There was no might in our family. Education was really important to my mother. It was just like, where are you going? What is your major going to be? So, I grew up loving reading because that was one of the things that my mother instilled in us. I mean, I was in the third grade, reading the daily newspaper. So that was
Wow.
something that we had to do daily, was read the newspaper. If we
Mhm.
didn't read the newspaper, my mother wanted to make sure that we were always current of what was going on around the world. And as a child, that's how I discovered I could sing, was through my mother. I was listening to I think one of Roberta Flack songs at my grandparents' home in Sherman. You know how they used to have those big long stereos with the
Yeah.
amplifiers on the end. And I actually, believe it or not, was very shy. And everybody got so quiet and I didn't want to sing. And my mother just encouraged me to sing and encouraged me to be a musician, to play the piano. And that's where I got my love of music and reading. I mean, in the third grade, I would read a magazine and I would see these, they used to, this is really going old school. I
Yeah.
would pull out those postcards and fill out like the Wizard of Oz series, different books. And of course, I never got in trouble because it was reading and education. But that's just a little bit, and traveled the world as a child. And then in high school, we moved my junior year to Fort Hood, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And that summer, it was actually a blast. My mother encouraged us to say, hey, this is new, just move forward and do your thing, which my sister and I did. We won all the dance contests that summer. And by the time we got to high school, you would have thought we had been there the whole 4 years.
Wow, that is some backdrop. That is some.
Yeah, and then I was in choir in school too. And then like I said, I got to sing solos and all that. No matter what, if my mother had worked 16 hours a day, she was going to be there to hear me perform. And I loved the symphony and I loved opera.
Mhm.
And she always encouraged that for me.
Wow, that is an amazing story. Sounds like a wonderful parent, a wonderful mother. Um, you recently lost her recently.
Yes.
She
Ye-
transitioned rather.
Yes, in November. She
What
did.
year?
Of this past year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, my mother passed away on November the 11th on Veterans Day.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and by that Saturday, we had her funeral because she was being buried at the VA cemetery.
Yeah.
And that, I think Tuesday or Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was just this past year. So
Yeah.
our family has not really had a chance to grieve. We
Yeah.
lost our dad um, in September,
Mm-hmm.
and then my mother went in November. And then by Thanksgiving, we found out my grandson was terminally ill. And we just lost him. Well, we just buried him. It hasn't even been a month yet.
Oh, wow. Oh, my condolences to the
Yeah, so dealing with being there also for my grandson, which I would say our whole family uh,
Mm-hmm.
has been there for me with my grandson. We even brought him up here from Houston, and he passed away here on March 30th, and we had his funeral in Houston just April the 14th.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
learning a lot through this grief process.
Yeah. It's a lot to process. We lost my mother a year ago. So this is my
I remember,
yeah, this is my second Mother's Day without her. So yeah, it's that grieving process. How are you dealing with the grieving process right now?
well, just to be totally honest, I'm so grateful for my mother's sisters, my two aunts, my sister, and my brother, Lauren, because during this grief process of losing my mother,
Mhm.
uh, my faith has been steadfast, honestly. I'm dealing with a sense of peace and hope. And then not that I think I know the first thing is honesty. As being a minister, I'm so accustomed to being there for other people, being strong for others,
Mhm.
not showing empathy for them, but not getting so emotionally involved.
Okay.
And so it comes with the truth. And I finally told my sister and brother one day, hey, I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time. And my brother, and of course, I know they're dealing with their own grief, but my
Mhm.
brother started calling me and saying, okay, one step at a time, or
Yeah.
you out of bed.
Mhm.
You know, he
Yeah.
said, one step is just sitting, on the side of the bed. And with my faith, I have certain scriptures that I've been reading every day. I wrote some notes too, you
Okay.
know, and I have some prayers that I have for strength, for comfort and peace. Every day I get up and I recite Psalms 34:18. The Lord is close to the broken heart and saves those who are crushed in spirit. And I know that my spirit had been so crushed because directly after my mother passing away within the same week, found out about my grandson. So then I shift gears and I'm trying to be there for my daughter, being there for my grandson. So then I don't deal with the loss of my mother at all. I just started dealing with my mother's loss when we
Mhm.
lost my grandson.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's, 1 second at a time, 1 minute at a time, one
Mhm.
step at a time. There's a lot of steps to healing. And just like my brother said, um, you have to start, you know, sitting up on the side of the bed,
Yeah.
getting up out of the bed, taking a shower, getting dressed, you
Yeah.
know, and you're going, like I guess Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the 5 stages of death and dying, you're not going to go through all five of those stages at the same time. You may go through a different time, but be aware of it and be honest when people are calling you saying, how are you doing?
Yeah, don't just say, I'm fine. Yeah,
Right.
be honest.
Be very honest with yourself first and then with them and say, I need help. And some people may not know what to do because one of my friends from Austin called.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her the same day I told my brother, I'm having a hard time getting out of the bed.
Yeah.
And I know she really didn't know what to do, but she sent me some flowers. And what she doesn't know, this was just a couple of weeks ago, but what she doesn't really understand is those flowers brightened my whole day.
Wow.
It just lifted me up. And I just said, you know what? One thing I can tell you, my mother was a very strong, determined woman, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and I was thinking, and I could just hear her voice saying, now, Rhonda, you know better.
Ah,
Pray,
yeah.
pray,
Uh-huh.
pray. Ask the Lord to guide you. And
Mm-hmm.
and that is actually what I've been doing with scriptures and just being open. You have to be open to your family, your friends. And like you said, you have to just stop saying, I'm okay. What does I'm okay say? You know, you're not okay. And it's okay to say, I'm sad. I miss her. But then you have to start doing things to celebrate that person too. So Saturday, my oldest daughter received her bachelor's degree. My son came and picked me up. My sister and her daughter called. And I was feeling kind of weird because I said, oh my God, my mother would love this, that Katrina has gotten her degree.
Mm-hmm.
But we just started talking about times when we were younger, when we were teenagers, different sayings my mother said. And I felt a sense of healing coming through. And I mean, we laughed. I laughed so hard about some of the things that my mother would say to us and some of the things that she did. And we all talked about how much she sacrificed to educate us, to give us. And and in the same sense, I felt so good knowing and accepting the fact that she was no longer suffering because my mother had been sick since she was like 44, 45 years old. She retired from being a nurse and she was the director of nurses at Terrell State Hospital. Again, another first, a lot of first in my mom's life. She did a lot of things that we all are grateful for. When I was younger, we were talking about how, oh my God, who's going to live with us now? Who is she about to take care of? And those were some of the things that she did that we're just like her now in a lot of those areas, especially my sister. And my mother always took someone in and tried to help them.
Wow. That is amazing. Do you remember your last, her last words to you or last conversation you had with her?
Actually, she called me on the telephone with my granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And where she's from in Sherman, Texas, the last time they had a family reunion
Mm-hmm.
is when my mother put it together. And I think during the time my grandmother was still alive, or I
Mm-hmm.
think she did it once after my grandmother passed away. So she called me to say that they were going to be meeting and she was trying to get spellings, like of my grandchildren's name, her and my eldest granddaughter. And we were just laughing and talking about this family reunion and where she was from. And she was saying, make sure, I want you guys to make sure this was that Friday and she passed away that Monday. That you always, and one thing that we learned from a very, very early age, my mother would always say before ending any conversation, I love you. She would always say, I love you, I thank God for you, or I appreciate you. And
Oh,
that's something that we all had you know, carried on. Because one of the things she used to say is, we don't know, this could be the last time we see each other. You should always tell people you love them or how you feel about them when you have the chance. So that was something that we did learn from her. And so it was a wonderful conversation with her. Um, and my granddaughter, because like I said, my mother was a leader and
Yeah.
she was always in charge of everything. And so just speaking with her on that day, I know that my daughter and my sister are going to all those meetings, and the family reunion is going to be sometimes this year. So we all are going to show up, for my mom in her name because this was so important to her. She has been wanting to have this family reunion again for years. So
Wow.
we will be honoring her.
Yeah. Do you see that this could be something you would do every year to kind of celebrate her?
Oh, yes, of course we would.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that is a beautiful, beautiful story. Um, how do you turn grief into purpose, you think? How would you be able to?
Well, for me, one of the things that I was thinking about right after I talked to you, because I kept thinking one of the things I could do is to honor her. I
Mhm.
had decided to have the Faith Awards every other year. So this is the year. So one of the things I thought I could honor her or even name my scholarships after her. My
Wow.
sister and I did start a scholarship in my mother's name for nurses where we went to school one year. We did it like a couple of years, but something like that that would be permanent. I like to honor, especially a single mother who's going back to college or that's trying to become an RN. And just like what I told you, we did this past weekend, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just from you asking me. Yes, I started writing, and you know how much I love to write. I
Yeah.
just started talking about the steps to healing, how to honor her, um, just maybe through my faith awards, through the two schools that my mother attended, Grayson County College in Sherman, Texas, and University of Texas at Arlington, because education was so important to her, and she
Yeah.
instilled education in all of us.
I love that idea. I think that would be awesome. That would be absolutely awesome. What do you say to children, adult children who have their parents here with them now?
Why you have them here, they
Yeah.
are precious.
Yeah.
Honor them, love them, visit them.
Yeah.
If there's any issues, discuss them with them,
Okay.
set
Yeah.
things straight,
Oh. Mm-hmm.
visit them, and honor them every chance you get.
Yeah.
So almost 10 years ago in December,
Mm-hmm.
my siblings and I were talking on the phone, was like, what are we going to do for Mama's birthday? And
Uh,
I think we talked about it in 2013. And I said, well, you know what? As a fundraiser, event planner, a lot of times we make payments on the agencies for the hotels. So we decided we're going to give our mother the nicest shindig she could ever have on her 75th birthday. And we did that in December 2014. We honored her, and my mother always said, oh, she never had a prom and all of that. So
mhm.
she had like, oh my God, prom, the Grammys, you name it. It was all in one.
Right.
Her
In one.
birthday is in December, so it was like winter wonderland.
Yeah.
Uh, we put her and my dad up in the penthouse at the hotel. And I mean, she was just like in disbelief. The mayor of DeSoto called it Celestine Branch Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Gloria West, who's Senator Royce West's mom, they were one of the first Black nurses at the VA hospital. So
Yeah.
she came, she got a lot of, what do you call them, declarations from proclamations, rather. She had several proclamations
Mhm.
and all of that. And we were so happy that we were able to honor her while she could enjoy it. And she definitely enjoyed it. It was so beautiful. And like I said, all four of us made payments for a whole year
Mhm.
to give her what she so deserved. And it was just
Absolutely.
beautiful.
We did the same thing right before my mother passed too. On her 80th, for her 80th birthday, we all the siblings got together and we just decided that we were going to give her a wonderful birthday party, just a big birthday bash with all the trimmings, the food and all of that. And it was just such a blessing. Such She was so happy, and I'm so thankful that we were able to honor her that way. And that was February 10th, and the following month, March 10th, she passed away. And we had,
Mhm.
it's just
That
not.
was a blessing.
That was a blessing. A whole month, it's like she was holding on,
Yes.
for that party. And just exactly 30 days later, she passed away. And it was suddenly, she wasn't like sick on a sick bed or anything like that. So we were really surprised. But one thing about it is that even though they are not here with us on earth, some people say, I don't have a mother, but you do.
Yes, you do.
You still have a mother. She's just in a different place.
Hmm.
Just not, with you here on the earth. Do you ever feel her presence or anything like that?
Yes. Yes, I do. Uh,
Mm, mm,
it was like a Monday after I talked to you on Tuesday morning. I was feeling some kind of way. I just started praying. And
mhm.
like I told you, I felt like I could hear her voice, you
Yeah,
know, talking uh, to me and encouraging me to move
yeah.
along, to continue to pray, continue to heal. And that was one of the things I loved about my mother. She was so supportive to me in the ministry. She
Oh,
was very supportive to me in the ministry. And I used to really love hearing her stories about how she grew up in the holiness church
okay.
and especially about the way we dress now,
Yeah.
cover your arms, no
Right.
V-neck, don't show all that.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from her, just about the church. And I
Mhm.
remember years ago in my first marriage, I was in Germany and I called her and I said, I can't get my husband to go to church. And today I told her I had put my kids on the bus to go to church and I stayed at home with my husband. And she wasn't judgmental or anything. And she just said, baby, let me tell you something. When that day comes, the Lord is going to look at you as an individual, not you and your husband together. So when he doesn't want to go, you need to encourage him. Encourage him to go, but he will go on his own. But you have to answer to the Lord, and you're an example to your children. So if you have to get on the church bus with them, I want you to do that because I know that the Lord loves you and watches over you. So all those type of things. And let me tell you, this was in the 80s, and I still remember her words. And I just shared this with my sister the other day,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
that my mother was always giving me wonderful advice. And there's so many things that she shared with me about different people
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't listen to. And later I would come to her and say, Mama, you were right. And I know that you have wisdom and you can feel things and I
Yeah.
appreciate you. And I've told her that so many times
Mhm.
about different things. Because, when we get so grown, we think, oh,
Oh, think you know
she don't,
everything.
yeah, she don't know what
Mama
she's
don't
talking
know
about.
not. Mama
Yeah.
don't know nothing. She don't know what she's talking about. She too
Oh, baby,
old,
yeah.
you
Yes,
know.
she did. She knew. She
Yeah,
knew.
yeah. Mamas be knowing.
Mm-hmm.
If they would only listen to the wisdom, you will have a better life. You won't have to go through the things that she may have gone through.
Yeah, and there was a time when I was in Dallas, I had dated someone after I got divorced,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother was living in Terrell, and I drove down to Terrell, and I was hurting so bad. There's so many different things that I think about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went to her house, went in the guest room, and just got in the bed. She came in there, gave me something to eat, and said,
Mm-hmm.
"It's okay to cry.
Yeah.
There are going to be steps to healing. It's
Yeah.
okay. And if God, this person wasn't meant for you that God had for you, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Pray about it. There's steps." And I remember she kept telling me there's steps to healing. It's okay to cry. She would always tell me that it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry and get on with life. And those are the things that I've been thinking about that she shared with me. And like I said, and that was probably in the 90s. And so many different times I have gone to my mom when I was hurting, and it just seemed like that space, being with her comforting me, are the things that I think about now to comfort myself to move forward.
That is absolutely, absolutely true. There's there's something about when your mother passes, it's because you never knew life ever without your mother being in it. Although she knew life before you,
Right,
she had a life before we were born. So she knows what it's like to be without you, but we don't know what it's like to be without her because since we were born, especially those who had a relationship with their mother, we don't know what it's like not to have them in our world.
right.
That's
Just like,
what makes it so difficult of a life to try to continue to go on for some
yeah,
people.
like my brother put some pictures of her in our family group the other day, and he
Mhm.
said, and it actually was the same day that you asked me to be on the show, and I sent it to them, and he posted these collage of pictures of my mother. He said, "I'm missing her so much today."
Really? That is amazing.
He was like, "I'm missing her so much today." And then he made a post. I think that same day he asked my daughter to find this picture of my mother. I think it was from the 50s or 60s,
Mhm,
in her little white nurse's uniform with the little nurse's hat. And so
mhm.
he posted that on Facebook and said, my favorite nurse.
Oh, sweet. That is
And
so
I
sweet.
do, and I do think about my siblings, especially my sister, because my sister moved in um,
Mhm.
with our parents and stayed there for the past 3 years. I went and stayed for like 60 days to help out. So I can imagine how it was for her for 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that is something. And you were talking about your brother posting stuff on Facebook. That's kind of therapeutic to be able to do that.
Yes, it is.
Because we have a dedicated page in our family, it's for the love of mother, and we'll post things on there, pictures and memories and things like that.
Oh,
I
wonderful.
find that to stay connected to her, I'll watch her favorite movies or listen to some of her favorite songs,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Are there any ways that you've discovered so far about how to stay connected to her in your daily life?
Well, for me, every time I get with this is something you have to understand. My mother and her sisters are closer than any sister relationship I know. They
Uh,
both have lived with us. The one aunt grew up in the home. And even when I cook, my mother, I know everybody says their mother is the best cook, but our mother was. I mean, when we grew up,
mm,
I've always wondered how did my mother do it? Because our meals were full meals, family style, appetizer, dessert.
yeah,
Okay. Sundays was really a big meal. If
yeah.
my mother didn't cook, my aunt helped cook.
Ah,
And so we all love cooking. My brother's a COO of a mental health hospital, but he also owns a catering business. We love to compete in cooking, just like my mother and her sisters. And so my mother taught me at a young age how to cook, and I loved cooking. Cooking some of her recipes makes me
yeah,
think about her. Like I
yeah.
said, cooking for us is it's a contest because one of the things my mother would always say, well, if I have to say so myself, it was excellent.
Just to hear her compliment you on your food is
Right.
just like
Oh,
everything.
yes. And especially when I would make turkey and dressing, or
Oh
I
yeah.
would love to invite her to my home to treat her the way
Mm,
she always treats everyone. So at the some of my sorority sisters said, "What are you doing trying to be your mom tonight?" Because what I did in my mother's visitation, I was
mhm.
walking around as a hostess. I had a tray with Cokes, water, snacks. The funeral home people were teasing me, saying they're gonna have to go back to Sam's to get some more stuff. But I came when the visitation started and I left when the visitation ended, because that was the type of loving person my mother was. She loved to host uh, folks and make sure everybody was happy. So I
Yeah.
just walked around the chapel, greeting everybody, talking to everybody. And now I get on my children's nerves because I'm just like my mother. I don't know a stranger. I talk to everybody in the store and everywhere I go.
Yeah.
And so at first I used to say, oh, I'll never be like her. Huh.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like I'll never be like that. And then you look in the mirror one day and you're just
And
like her.
right, and those are the things that I love about myself. And those are the things
Amen.
that people tell me about myself, about the kindness, the empathy, the love that I have for others. And I
Yeah.
know I get that from my mother, because some people say, you speak so eloquently. I say, yeah, I get that from my mother.
I love it. I love it. Wow, I mean, we can go on and on talking about all our legacy and our beautiful, wonderful mother. Uh, I just thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for being here and sharing your story. I'm sure this is going to help people who are grieving to help them to get
But I
over.
do want to say one more thing about grieving. And,
Okay.
and with this being Mental Health Month, and this is something that I have to face myself.
Yeah.
It is so important that you have someone that you can talk to, your family, your community, which means your church, your
Yeah.
pastor, a
Yeah.
counselor. It's okay not to be okay. This is
Yeah.
the thing that I've had to learn. It's
Mm.
okay not
Not to
to
be.
be
Oh,
okay. And it's okay to say, no, I can't do that today. You have to take care of yourself first before you take care of others. And I think this is the thing that has happened to me, that I've been so busy trying to take care of others through the other grief that
ah,
has come up on me, that I
yeah.
hadn't taken care of myself. And
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to get counseling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
even the pastor with my grandson, I really admire him, Pastor Myron Hardy. He's at Concord Church. And the thing that he even said to my daughter that day at the repast,
Mm-hmm.
you need to seek counseling. you
Yeah.
need to get counseling. And it's okay to get counseling. We have to restart our engines, start over, and we do that with faith, with praying for comfort, for strength, for hope, for peace. And we have to, it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
Like I said, those 5 stages of death and dying,
Mhm.
2 or 3 may come this year. The other, you know what I'm saying? The other 2 may
Yeah.
come next year. But
Right.
we have to deal with our grief, because if we don't, you're going to explode. And it's okay to cry. Crying is not a sign of weakness.
Mhm.
It's just God replenishing us.
Oh, wow. I love that. God is replenishing us. And we do need, I agree, we need to get that grief counseling if, if at all possible to
And
help.
if not possible, there are faith-based organizations,
Yeah.
that you can look up that do free counseling if you can't afford to pay a therapist, or if you don't have insurance. And if you don't have insurance, call that United Way and they can refer you to someone if you don't have the funds for counseling.
Oh,
And
that's a great resource.
yeah,
Wow.
because counseling does not mean that you're weak. Counseling just means that you're strong. You need to restart that engine.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we close our conversation about this wonderful conversation that I think is going to help a lot of people?
Thank you so much for having me, because what I want to thank you for is helping me in my grief process. With you asking me to be on here,
Mm-hmm.
initially I was going to say no. And then I said, no, you're ready. So
Wow.
literally, I have written like 4 or 5 pages of what I was going to say. But this, I'm going to read to you what I wrote. And I just wrote, my faith has also given me the courage to face each day with resilience. The teachings and principles I hold dear that my mother taught me have guided me through this challenging time, reminding me that I'm not alone in my sorrow. The support of my faith community has been invaluable, offering prayers, words of encouragement, and a sense of belonging. And especially during this time, you have to lean on your faith and make yourself open. Don't ever feel like you're being a burden. And like I said, when my brother and my sister call me and talk to me, and especially my sister, she'll tell somebody say, well, she hasn't called me. And she says, well, really, the friendly outward person Rhonda, that's her public persona. She's a very private person, which is hard for most people to believe, and she'll say she's a loner, and I am one. When I get to myself, I'm trying to rebuild. And I've had a couple people who have been offended because I haven't had time to text back or call back. I haven't even been in the place for my own self. I'm getting there now. And I want to thank you for helping me on this road to recovery, because when I write, my writing helps heal me.
Mhm.
So I said, I guess this is probably going to be my next book, Cindy.
I think that would be wonderful.
And
Yes. Yes. We
And
need
so
that. We need that.
our faith is our source of comfort and strength. And I want to thank you for inviting me, because of you asking me to be here has truly helped me in my healing process. You
Wow.
just
Praise the
don't
Lord.
know how much, because I hadn't even been able to write. I
Mhm.
mean, I've been able to do the little short stuff, because people kept saying, why haven't you been posting on Facebook? Because it hadn't really been there. And
Mm.
then, but this has helped me, and I pray that it helps someone else. But like we both said, just first admitting I'm hurting. I don't know what to do. I need help. And sometimes just someone listening, someone holding your hand, just reading scriptures and prayer. And I did want to share the main scriptures that I always read.
Yeah.
Psalms 34 and 18, Matthew 5 and 4, Revelations 21 and 4, 2 Corinthians 1, 3 to 4. And again, prayer is key. Talking to someone, it's okay to isolate yourself for a minute.
Yeah.
Isolation is not good.
Okay.
And that's how I started out. And I was like, okay, someone sent me a thing on Facebook that said, let them isolate, but don't let them linger.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. And you know, also want to add, thank you. And there is no set time limit of how long that you have to grieve. You know, like you said earlier, it comes and goes, you know, and you never know how long that's going to last. So, you know, just the healing process and grieving process takes time. So, but I
It
want,
does, because
yeah.
after we came back, that Sunday we came back from Houston for my grandson.
Hmm.
And then that Tuesday, I called my son and I said, you know, I had already purchased stuff for my parents' grave. So that was my way too, still of trying to heal. I didn't want to stay in the house that day. So
Hmm.
my son came and we went to go visit their graves. And so, like I said, I know it's a lot because all of this, 3 deaths within 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, in our family, but we are one. We are family. I love my family. They're wonderful. I'm so appreciative of all of them. And like I said, you know, we're there for my dad, for my mom. And when I say my family came together like a vengeance for me, for my grandson, it's just a blessing. I mean, what are we without our families?
I agree. I agree. What are we without our families? And we will close with that because we know that God is faithful
Yes.
and that His grace is sufficient for us in our weakness.